The radical power of kindness, transforming leadership through care. Have you ever noticed how we glorify toughness in leadership? We celebrate the hard charging executive, the uncompromising boss, the leader who makes the tough calls without flinching. Our society has conditioned us to believe that effective leadership requires an iron fist, especially for Black women navigating professional spaces where the bar is set impossibly high. But what if we've been getting it all wrong? I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Katrina Roebuck, a visionary leader whose transformative work in social services has created ripples of change that extend far beyond her immediate sphere. Katrina isn't just a leader, she's a revolutionary who has dared to challenge the fundamental assumptions about what makes leadership effective, particularly for Black women operating in systems that weren't designed with them in mind. Her insights don't just inspire, they illuminate a path forward that could fundamentally reshape how we think about power, influence, and creating lasting change. What struck me most profoundly in our conversation was a simple yet radical assertion. Everyone is deserving of safety, respect, dignity, rest, and joy, not as privileges to be earned through extraordinary effort or achievement, but as fundamental rights that should be accessible to all, regardless of background or circumstances. Let that sink in for a moment. In a world that constantly tells us we need to hustle harder, achieve more, and sacrifice everything for success, particularly as Black women, this perspective isn't just refreshing, it's revolutionary. Consider the story of Katrina Smith, a licensed clinical social worker in North Chesterfield, Virginia. When she looked at her community, she didn't just see clients with mental health challenges. She saw human beings facing real barriers, stigma that prevented them from seeking help, lack of insurance that made care unaffordable, transportation issues that made appointments inaccessible. The system wasn't working for them, and the conventional wisdom would have been to simply work within those constraints. But Katrina refused to accept these barriers inevitable. She implemented flexible appointment scheduling that accommodated the complex lives of her clients. She pioneered telehealth services long before they became mainstream and bringing care directly into homes where people felt safe. She launched community outreach programs that didn't just educate about mental health, but actively worked to dismantle the stigma that kept people suffering in silence. The results weren't just improved mental health outcomes, though those certainly followed. What truly transformed was the relationship between marginalized communities and the healthcare system that had historically failed them. Trust began to grow where suspicion had once flourished. People who had felt invisible suddenly felt seen, heard, and valued. That's the power of leading with the radical belief that everyone deserves dignity and respect. It doesn't just change individual interactions, it transforms entire systems. But here's where it gets really interesting. We've been conditioned to believe that kindness is somehow at odds with effectiveness, that to be successful, especially as Black women in professional spaces, we must be tough, unyielding, even harsh. The message is clear: nice leaders finish last. Dr. Maya Angelou once said, I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. This wisdom resonates deeply with what Katrina Roebuck emphasized in our conversation. Kindness isn't just a nice to have quality, it's a strategic leadership advantage. Dr. Katrina S. Chance demonstrated this principle brilliantly in her role as Assistant Director of a Child Care Resource and Referral Center at Savannah Technical College. The challenges she faced would have broken many leaders. Severely limited funding that couldn't stretch to meet growing needs, staff turnover rates that threatened program continuity, and families desperate for safe, high quality childcare options that simply didn't exist in sufficient numbers. A conventional leader might have responded with strict policies, budget cuts, and demanding more from an already stretched team. That's just the reality. They might have said, we have to be tough to survive. Instead, Dr. Chance led with kindness and support. She secured additional funding by building authentic relationships with community partners who came to trust her vision. She implemented staff wellness programs that recognized the emotional toll of working with families in crisis. She created comprehensive resource guides that empowered parents to make informed choices about their children's care. The outcome? Staff turnover plummeted, team morale soared. More families found safe, nurturing environments for their children. Under her leadership, the center became a regional model for family engagement and staff retention. Her approach was so successful that it influenced state level policy discussions on childcare quality and workforce support. That's not just being nice, that's strategic leadership that creates lasting change. As Audre Lorde reminds us, caring for myself is not self indulgence, it is self preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. For Black women, especially, prioritizing care, both for ourselves and others, is a revolutionary act in a world that often expects us to sacrifice ourselves endlessly. This brings me to the third powerful insight from my conversation with Katrina Roebuck. Self care and team care are essential, particularly for those in helping professions. We've all heard the airplane safety instruction: put on your own oxygen mask before assisting others. Yet, how many of us, especially those dedicated to serving others, consistently ignore this wisdom? We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor, as if running on empty somehow proves our commitment. Another Katrina, a senior manager in children's social care with nearly 20 years of experience, saw firsthand how her team struggled in high stress environments with limited resources. Her social workers were confronting the most heartbreaking situations imaginable: children in danger, families in crisis, systems failing those most vulnerable. Burnout and compassion fatigue weren't just personal problems, they were organizational threats that compromised the quality of care provided to vulnerable children. Rather than pushing her team harder, as conventional wisdom might suggest, she prioritized their wellness. She introduced peer support groups where staff could process the emotional weight of their work in a safe environment. She implemented flexible scheduling that acknowledged the reality that humans cannot function effectively in crisis mode indefinitely. She instituted regular recognition of staff achievements, celebrating not just outcomes, but the care and commitment that went into the work. The results speak for themselves: higher job satisfaction, lower turnover, and most importantly, improved outcomes for the children and families served. When her team felt cared for, they could provide better care to others. It's not complicated, but it is profound. Her approach was guided by a simple but powerful belief: leaders must care for their teams to enable them to care effectively for others. As the African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Sustainable leadership isn't about driving yourself and your team to exhaustion. It's about creating conditions where everyone can thrive for the long haul. For Black women navigating professional spaces where we're often expected to be superhuman while being undervalued, this message is particularly crucial. We cannot pour from empty cups. We cannot lead effectively when we're depleted. Self care isn't selfish, it's strategic. Team care isn't soft, it's smart. Now, I can already hear the objections forming. That sounds nice in theory, but in the real world, Let me stop you right there. This isn't theory, this is practice with proven results. When leaders prioritize kindness, dignity, and care, they don't just feel good, they get better outcomes, lower turnover, higher engagement, improved service quality. These aren't soft metrics, they are bottom line impacts that any organization should care about. And yet, we continue to glorify the tough, demanding leader while dismissing the kind, caring one as too soft, especially when that leader is a Black woman. This perception is not just wrong, it's harmful. It perpetuates a system where Black women are caught in an impossible double bind: be tough and get labeled as aggressive, or be kind and get dismissed as weak. Katrina Roebuck's insights offer us a different path forward, one where kindness is recognized as strength, where care is understood as strategy, where dignity is non negotiable. So, what does this mean for you? If you're a leader, formal or informal, I challenge you to examine how you show up. Are you creating an environment where people feel safe, respected, and valued? Are you modeling self care and encouraging it in others? Are you treating kindness as a core leadership competency rather than a nice to have? If you're part of a team, are you advocating for your own needs and the needs of your colleagues? Are you contributing to a culture of care and respect? And if you're a Black woman navigating systems that weren't designed with you in mind, I hope you hear this message loud and clear. You deserve safety, respect, dignity, rest, and joy, not because you've earned them through extraordinary achievement, though many of you have, but because you are inherently worthy of them. As Katrina Roebuck emphasized, these aren't privileges, they're rights. And claiming them isn't selfish, it's necessary. I invite you to take one concrete step this week to practice this philosophy. It might be a supportive conversation with a team member, it might be implementing a small wellness initiative, it might simply be expressing appreciation to someone who makes your work possible. Or it might be giving yourself permission to rest when you need it without guilt or apology. These actions may seem small, but they ripple outward. They change cultures, they transform systems, they save lives. In a world that celebrates toughness, choosing kindness is an act of courage. In environments that demand constant productivity, prioritizing rest is an act of resistance. In systems that devalue care, leading with compassion is an act of revolution. The most powerful leadership isn't about dominating others, it's about elevating them. It isn't about being the toughest person in the room, it's about creating conditions where everyone can thrive. It isn't about sacrificing yourself on the altar of achievement, it's about modeling sustainable success that honors the humanity in all of us. This is the wisdom Katrina Roebuck shared with me, and it's wisdom our world desperately needs, especially in spaces where Black women's voices and leadership approaches have been systematically undervalued. So let's not just challenge the narrative, let's rewrite it. Let's not just redefine leadership, let's revolutionize it. Let's create workplaces and communities where kindness isn't just tolerated but celebrated, where care isn't just permitted but prioritized, and where everyone's dignity isn't just respected but fiercely protected. Because when we do that, we don't just transform organizations, we transform lives, including our own. The world doesn't need more tough leaders. It needs more courageous ones who dare to lead with kindness in a culture that mistakes cruelty for strength. It needs more visionaries who recognize that caring for people isn't separate from achieving results. It's the most reliable path to sustainable success. The revolution won't be harsh or demanding. It will be kind. It will be respectful. It will insist on dignity for all. And it begins with you today, choosing a different way to lead,